So, welcome to the 1015 podcast, and I'm Philip Schlump, the instructor for this class, but also for this podcast, we're going to talk about why computer science and what makes it special. Why would you want to be in the computer science field? There are a bunch of reasons, but I'm going to start out with jobs. Okay, most of you here in the university are here because you'd like to have a career in something and you're interested in a particular field. Computer science has a bunch of unique distinctions. One of those is that if you do a degree in pretty much anything in STEM, science or engineering, chances are that what you're going to end up doing is programming. In fact, I talked to a statistician at the state. We'll probably have an interview with her in one of the podcasts. She got hired by the state of Wyoming, and she does all the reporting for the COVID reporting. If you look up the statistics, it's her work that is building the PowerPoint presentations and the slides and that kind of stuff. And when she went to school, she didn't think that what she was going to be doing is ending up being a programmer. And the reason I've been helping her is because, yes, she's writing Python programs and R programs to do this, and she's basically working as a programmer. And her experience is not unique. In fact, it's the common case. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that 87% of all new college graduates in all of science, engineering, mathematics will end up programming. I know civil engineers that are doing modeling, and the modeling for what they're doing for things like traffic safety is done in software. They aren't designing roads, they're writing programs. And mechanical engineers that I have some background doing things like high-pressure Lexan injection molds. Well, all the computation for high-pressure Lexan injection molds these days is done by writing programs. And electrical engineers that instead of building circuits, they're programming in Verilog. So what we do today is mostly software. And I'm sitting here in my little studio that I built for doing recordings, and I'm looking around, and over here in front of me, I have a camera that basically has computers in it. There's one light bulb at the moment turned on because I don't have my main lights for doing video recording. I don't need those to do a podcast, but that light bulb is a smart light bulb. And the light bulb is connected to the internet, and it has, yes, a processor in it running Linux, and I have logged onto the light bulb. On the wall behind it, there's a thermostat, thermostat for controlling the temperature in here. And it used to be that the way thermostats were built is they were a bimetal switch, and the bimetal would expand and contract, and that would turn on and turn off a switch. But if you look inside that thermostat, what you're going to find is a computer. In fact, it's running Linux, and I have actually logged on and edited software on my thermostat. And there are 5 different lights in here for me doing video recording. And 4 of those lights have computers in the lights. And that's just in a room that doesn't have much in it. There's also, in the next room, a drill motor. And the drill motor is a cordless drill motor. It has a lithium-ion battery. Every one of those lithium-ion batteries has a battery management system in it, which is a computer. There are, behind my head, some USB wall plugins. The wall plugins, yes, are smart wall plugins that will turn off when you aren't using a USB charger on them. And guess what? Every one of those wall plugins has a computer in it. Out in front of my house, I have a car. The single most expensive system in modern cars today is the computer system. It isn't the engine, it isn't the tires, it isn't the suspension, it isn't the body. The most expensive part of the car is the computer. So in each one of these cases, we're looking at a world where computers are eating the world. It's not just the desktops. It's all the other things all around us. There are smart fridges and smart stoves and smart dryers, and there are, yes, isn't this a frightening thought? You can get a smart toaster so that your toast is toasted just right every time, and it has a computer in it. So yes, all these different systems, including toasters, have computers. And the reason for this is a fundamental economic principle. And this is what makes all of this make sense. Is if you look at the economics of the system, if I manufacture plastic trash cans, let's say, the cost of the trash can cannot drop below the marginal cost of, the plastic or the metal that goes into the can. I mean, I may have some engineering costs, some non-recoverable engineering. There's designs of the molds for it and all of these things. But at the end, if I make enough of them, it comes down to the marginal cost. And if I can keep my marginal cost so that I make a profit above that, then I'm a profitable business and I stay in business and I continue to make trash cans. Well, in the software field, and increasingly in the hardware field too, the marginal cost is basically zero. There is no marginal cost. And what is the marginal cost of me downloading a program from the internet? A 10,000th of a cent? So you can produce millions of these things for a few dollars. It's all a question of what can you charge for it, and everything is profit above expenses. And those expenses are support. So if you can build a program well enough that it doesn't need much support, everything is profit. The same is true for hardware. And, the computer that we used to send people to the moon in 1969, a beautiful piece of engineering. And we can look at how much compute power it had. Today, you can go out to Walmart and you can get a card in the card department that plays Happy Birthday. You open it, it goes, okay, so I can't do the whole song. That's a copyright violation. But you know the song I'm talking about. And yeah, you open it, it does a reasonable rendition of Happy Birthday. And you can buy that card for $1.50. That card has more compute power than we use to send people to the moon. And the reason instead of costing millions of dollars for a computer, it costs so little that we can charge $1.50 for the card and have that computer in it is because the marginal cost of the hardware has continued to drop every year for decades. And that is likely to continue. The amount of capabilities that these computers have will increase. And at some point you get down to a marginal cost of 5 cents or something. I know that I can buy a Visual Basic chip, and it's a little tiny computer that doesn't have much capabilities, but the wall plugins doing the USB behind my head, that's what they have in them. And I can buy those in quantity for 5 cents a chip. That means that the manufacturer is still staying in business and selling those for 5 cents a chip. Now, quantity being 10,000 at a time, but even so, a lot of chips are incredibly cheap because, yes, once we've figured out how to build them and we've recovered the cost of engineering it up front and designing and building it, the cost of the piece of silicon and fabricating isn't very much. And as we get bigger and bigger systems that do this, we can put a lot of compute power into them, and they can do some amazing things, like light bulbs that run entire operating systems so that you can use your phone to make them dim. Basically, that's the capability. But sometimes it's useful to have that and to connect it all together and make these networks that work. So with all of these things happening and our world getting more and more automated and using more and more computers for all sorts of stuff, that's the reason why, and that's the economics that make computer science work. Now, what's coming up in the next few years? We have 2 new pieces of technology. I say new, even though they've been around for a decade now. They're just getting really started being used heavily. And those 2 new pieces of technology, one of them is cryptocurrencies and other applications of cryptocurrencies, blockchain technologies. And there is machine learning. And between those two, the smaller one is the cryptocurrencies. Now, right now in the world, the entire IT field represents about 3% of the world economy. Cryptocurrencies are expected to grow that to between 5 and 6% of the world economy. Basically double the entire computer science field with just this one technology. That's the small one of the two. And we have an amazing amount of cryptocurrency research, blockchain research happening here at the university. We've got all sorts of it happening here in the state. But machine learning dwarfs this. The best forecasts are that machine learning will represent between 20 and 50% of the entire world economy in 30 years. That is the biggest change to the world economy has ever seen. And that's happening right now with things like self-driving cars and medical diagnosis and routing packets on the internet and designing new drugs. We look at this pandemic, and there are 126 different kinds of vaccines that are being developed for it. Out of that, 36 of those, the recommended approach was developed by computers doing machine learning. So, they do some amazing things. That doesn't give us the final vaccine, but it gets us down the road towards it. And a lot of the research in this world happening today is happening using machine learning. A lot of manufacturing is going in that direction. It doesn't take people out of the picture. But, if I'm given the choice of digging a ditch with a hand shovel and a lot of backbreaking work or using a front-end loader, a front-end loader is a good choice. And machine learning is the modern front-end loader for doing all sorts of kinds of things. So I'm really interested in that. My interest, maybe we'll get around to this at some point, is using machine learning for the classification of some esoteric medical things, not for humans, for actually honeybees. So that's kind of my interest, but I use it for other things. I use it for classification. I've used machine learning in conjunction with Bitcoin for finding money laundering. So it has lots of applications, and that is the reason why computer science. Now, computer science, but what about, getting a job in the field? What is the prospects there? And if you read some of the literature, you'll see there's an article in one of the trade magazines that says recently 117,000 people have lost their jobs in the IT field. And you have to learn how to guard your brain against pieces of information like this. Oh, 117,000 have lost their jobs. This is horrible. Well, no, not really. In actuality, that's just a drop in the bucket. That took the unemployment rate, if it had all happened all at once, from 0.8% up to 2.3% in the IT field. And since then, people have been hiring because the one thing that we've discovered in this pandemic is that computers are keeping the economy going. They're allowing for people to work remotely. That's Zoom. I mean, they're the savior of the day. And lots of people like Zoom are hiring like crazy, trying to run up their performance, their scale, their utility to cover all of the things that are happening. And people are developing new applications because of the changes in the economy. And a lot of these changes are going to be very, very permanent. They're not going away anytime soon. So you're going to see more and more computer use, not less. In fact, that 2.3% that we saw right after the beginning of the pandemic has actually continued to drop. Unlike some other fields where there is a lot of suffering, and I can understand that, computers is not one of those fields. Lots and lots of people are doing really well at it, and there's still a lot of demand. Now, that's on the demand side, but can you get decent paying jobs in this? The average, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, for a computer science graduate is $78,500 or $78,400. I don't remember which one. But roughly $78,000 coming out of school. And that's pretty good. You can anticipate getting raises for about 5 to 6 years until you're making around $101,000, $102,000 a year. Those are the averages. University of Wyoming graduates do a little bit better than that. And if you're in some other engineering field, let's be serious, most of them do not do as well as computer science, and most likely you're going to end up programming. So you'd be better off to switch to computer science and just, this is the thing that's in demand in the economy, and this is where the world is going. So let's go do the thing that the world wants. and learn this field because this is what's going on. So that's kind of what you can anticipate job-wise and economics-wise. Now, computer science is not easy. I will also tell you that. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of effort to become a good programmer. And once you are out programming, the world is changing. You have to retrain basically continuously. If you don't retrain, in 5 years you'll be out of date, and in 10 years you'll be obsolete. So computer science is a field that is best suited to people that are willing to be continuous learners. Now, being a continuous learner means that, you're not going to get automated out of existence because what you're doing is changing and adapting all the time. But it also means you have to put in a lot of effort. You can't sit still. Sitting still is done. And a friend of mine has an expression for it. He says, dead fish float. And, it's kind of true. It's ugly, but yeah, dead fish float for a while, and then they sink. So you kind of got to watch out for that. Now, in my experience in 30 years in the field, yes, I've pushed hard for pieces of time. I've gotten good at some stuff, and then I've kicked back and enjoyed the results, and I've become a dead fish, and I floated for a while. But at least I understand that if I want to get back and get good at things, I'm going to have to go back into learning mode. I'm going to have to learn the new technologies. And, I learned COBOL when I was in college. And there is still demand for COBOL, but I don't really want to do COBOL. I also learned Fortran. Yes, you can still go get a job doing Fortran because there are places like CERN that run on top of it, but I don't particularly want to do that either. If I want to do the new, exciting, fun things like learning Flutter and using mobile development and building websites, I have to use modern technologies and new things like Visual Studio Code, and I have to sit down and learn it. So I have to learn just like everyone else in this class. So it's a continuous learning thing. New stuff happening all the time. This is not something where you're going to go and work and in 5 years go, I am so bored because I do exactly the same thing every day. I know a guy he's out in Washington, but he is a truck driver. Okay. He's actually concerned about being automated out of existence with machine learning. And he drives a truck between 2 yards in a sawmill. So he goes up the road, down the road, up the road, down the road, up the road, down the road, up the road, down the road. He knows the number of trips he's going to make every day. Up, down, and all he does is move logs from 1 yard to another yard. That's it. The same, 3/4 of a mile of road, back and forth. This is not something that requires great levels of intelligence. But the sawmill has to have it done. And they need somebody to drive the truck back and forth, and he's the guy that he doesn't go out in the forest driving the truck, just over here, load it up, over there, empty it. Over here, load it up. That's it. Every day, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Same stuff. Computer science is not that. You are not going to be doing the same thing every day. If you are, you should be thinking to yourself, uh-oh, I'm a dead fish. It's time to start working on something new. So there is that side to it. And if you're unwilling to be a person that's always adapting and always changing, wow, this may not be the right thing for you. But if you're willing to be a person that's willing to grab this and go with it and knows that every day will be exciting, every day will be something new, every day will have challenges and problems to solve, and then I'll always be fresh and excited because I'm always doing something new. Not just something new in my field, learning something new in some other field that I'm applying computers to. And here's a perfect example. I have done a bunch of work over the years on the properties of high-stress, pre-stressed concrete. That was not something I studied in college. But yes, I've written programs for that. So yeah, those are the reasons why, both from an economic perspective, jobs, the future, what's happening in the world, why I think computer science is a really important field. You can make an impact, you can earn a lot of money, and it can be a lot of fun to work in this field. Not something boring and repetitive. And with that, we will catch you in the next podcast.